I'm sitting here with Kash. I understand. Could you give us a bit about your role at Optus? And I understand that you're doing a data unification project. May you give us a bit of background of what that looks like?
Cool. So I'm a director of data at Optus. I head up a team within Group IT for that looks at all of our data platforms as well as our campaigning platforms. So as a campaigning, I mean marketing platforms as well as data and visualization and everything that actually goes along with it. Currently, we're embarked on a journey to modernize our data stack. In addition to just modernizing, we want to unify our data. So we had a data warehouse, a data lake. Now we want to put them all in one, the Lakehouse architecture with Databricks, actually as the technology to support it. We've started the journey. Come August, we should actually hit our first milestone, and then we got a subsequent ones to hit.
Perfect. What sort of challenges did you have with disparate data across the organization? Because Optus does a lot of things from telecom to sport, as well as you have marketing, sales, real estate, a huge team. How did you navigate the journey to bring everything into one source?
So firstly, I mean, we only have two analytical assets in a way. So I've got my Teradata for my data from an analytics perspective. When I say analytics, I mean insights and analytics. So that drives most of my reporting and everything else. And I've got Cloudera, like I said, for all of my big data workloads and my data scientists and everyone coming through. The challenge, obviously, having two technologies is data duplication. Mm-hmm. You actually duplicate data across both to some extent. I won't say it's a full duplication, but there's duplication of data. A lot of time goes into actually, it adds to latency, obviously, with duplication of data that there is, and it has to traverse through one technology and then make its way to the other. Those were the key ones. When I talk about challenges, we try to overcome them the best we can with the limitations of the technology. When I say that, I mean, for example, when you want to compute a KPI, we do it in one place, and then we take that into the next, rather than do it twice, because then you have business logic sitting in two areas. So we want to make sure that, hey, if you build it once, then build it there, and then take a copy of it once you've computed it into the other platform that you need. But there's a lot of data copied everywhere.
That's interesting. And it is a problem that you get duplication. It's also a problem, say, when you take snapshots that go into the database that you miss a little bit of data. I've always thought from my perspective that if you're doing something like a data warehouse, it's good to focus on those big trends over time than real specific areas that you'd zone in from, say, a OLTP database. So are you doing this to democratize the information to help people see trends and to make business decisions?
That's the end goal. So we want to make sure that every decision at Optus is driven. It's actually fact-based. It's driven by data. Mm-hmm. That's what we want to get to. So when we talk about how do we want to try and make sure that the relevant data is actually coming through, obviously we use data cataloging tools and all, and we constantly make changes to. When I say make changes, we're constantly iterating and evolving it, and we're also decommissioning anything that's actually not being used. Or if a definition is changed, then we make sure that we change the definition and we retire the old one. So it's more of a product mindset than a platform mindset. So I keep telling everybody that we've got 3 data products, roughly. One I call the SSOT, which has got the service and product view. One is C360, which has got the customer view. And the other one is the event store, which actually looks at all of my real-time events that are coming through. And across these 3 data products is what we actually try and manage as to what goes where and how do we make sure that they're always relevant.
That's interesting. I suppose we were talking before, you came from the business background and then you went into the data side. And it's probably really important to keep the business goal in mind when you look at these metrics, how they're contextualized and how people can drive decisions off the back of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Everything we do is obviously for the business. There's no technology for technology's sake. It makes no sense. So we want to make sure that everything we build is getting used, is actually adding to an outcome, is always, there's a so what on everything that we actually start the journey on. So we understand that, hey, it's not just about adding a table somewhere or a column to a table. It's how is the business going to be benefiting from what we've actually done. So how is this, so that we can get more value of everything that we're doing. So even when the business comes and says, hey, I need this attribute, we go, what do you intend to do with it? So those are the chats that we're having with the business upfront, which helps.
That's really cool. And I've always thought with data democratization as well and publicizing data across the business, there's two primary challenges. Maybe we'll deal with them one at a time. First is the data literacy of end users. How are you bridging that gap?
There's two ways that we do it. We obviously have, like I said, we have a data dictionary. We use Informatica for that. So we have Axon that actually has a catalog of all the data attributes, the business definition, the technical definition, and everything else. Now that's for the end users to come and log in and see what data is available, so that we don't rebuild something that actually exists. So we can just reuse what's there. Second thing is we have this chapter concept at Optus. So it's like a technology area chapter, for example. So I have a data engineering chapter, for example, and I use those data engineers to go and sit with the business units. So if the business needs to ever write any SQL queries or anything, they can actually go and partner with the business and actually build it. What this brings about is all the standards that we have put in place in the chapter. Those standards are now shared with everyone else in the business. And as these engineers go and actually spend time with the business, they understand the business context. So they become SMEs of the data as well. So it's a two-pronged approach that I think actually works quite well for us, where we understand the business context and we're able to share all the technology, constraints or technology standards that we want to go and implement across the board, which drives standardization across the company. So no matter who's writing code, it look the same. Or our frameworks are actually constantly evolving. You have a database connector in a framework. Now you want to connect to a different data source, either to ingest or to write back to. You only write it back to the framework again. So it's constantly evolving. So that in itself is a product. If you look at it, it's a technical product that the business doesn't care a lot about, I guess, but it really helps with your life cycle of building data.
And that's really interesting because you're further along the journey than a lot of organizations when you say that you've got standardized data definitions. You'd be surprised how rare that is. And poses a specific problem when people are using different language or the same language for different things. Like if the retail store is measuring their volume of phones in terms of number of phones, but the distribution center is doing it in square meters because they want to know how many pallets are taken up in a particular space. And it's very interesting problem.
We did encounter this. It's not like we didn't have those in the past. We did. One thing we've made quite clear or upfront even to ourselves is, if it's a different thing, call it a different thing. And if you're going to call something, say for example, a new connection. If you're going to call something a new connection, you can't have a new connection definition for sales and new connection definition for finance. Mm-hmm. It's a definition. So you either call it finance new connection, so that you know it's actually a finance connection, or finance new connection, and a sales new connection if you want to. So you will not find a KPI that's called something but means different things to different people. Mm. So that's something that we had to try and kill. This happened around the 2018 timeline.
Interesting. One of the other challenges I wanted to get to with democratization is some departments can be quite guarded about their information. So when you unify information, maybe the finance department doesn't want everyone to know, say, what wages people are on, or there's specific things that are sensitive they might not trust other departments with. Did you encounter these sort of things, and how have you counteracted it through the unification?
So there's clearly classification of data. So the sensitive data, things like wages and stuff, that obviously don't make their way anywhere, and it's only guarded so that only a few people in the organization have access to it. Firstly, that's not even stored in the data warehouse, but just But based on the data classification, we determine upfront as to, hey, can we share this, and who all in the organization can have access to it? And they're all based on roles. So there's role-based accesses across the data platforms. And it goes through an approval process. It's actually a multiple level approval process, so that we make sure that the right people have access to the right data. But then also coming back to data democratization, yes, people can get sometimes territorial. It did happen. What I saw work best is you start by sharing first. If you're territorial, then the other guy's going to be territorial too. So if you start by sharing and, hey, here's an open thing, At the end of the day, I work for Optus. When I leave Optus, it's not like I'm going to carry this on my backpack and leave. It's going to stay at Optus. It's a data asset for Optus. And that's the mindset that we got to try and implement.
It's a very good mindset to have. Last question is, how are you verbalizing this to different stakeholders in the organization about the importance of the process, taking away all the jargon and just focusing on how this is going to benefit them?
This has come. I guess it's been in the pipeline for a while on how we do it. There's multiple brown bag sessions. There is different sessions for everyone to come and actually use. All of our how do you access the data model or the framework. I've got online training curated for Optus at Optus that's available for anyone to go and learn at their own pace. So if you want to understand more about the framework, there is an online course for it. If you want to look at our visualization standards, what icons to use, there is a training material, and we have these the sharing sessions. The visualization community of practice is one more that we use, Yammer a fair bit, and they all meet once a month, and then they talk about the dashboards that they've actually built. We also bring in users to say, this is the value that I was able to generate from your dashboard. And like I said, this one part is that on trying to get them, and the other part is getting rid of stuff. So there's dashboards that were built. Now, if you open a folder and you see 1,000 dashboards, it'll confuse you as well as to which is relevant or which is not. So we look at the usage of all of our assets and we say, hey, this is not used in X amount of days. We put that in a retirement plan so that we can actually then go and decommission those.